cliched as it is, Rome wasn't built in a day. But when we had to make all the changes we made, which were quite a few, we have to build back slowly so we build back correctly. So it is going to take time.
And City Park created just moments away from opening kickoff.
Invite you to turn off the world and turn on the game.
Deflected! Get in there! Yes, baby!
Welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast, and I am joined by a very special guest, Carolyn Kindle, owner and CEO. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is a little tradition that we have. We normally do it just before the holidays, but we're doing this one at the start of the year because this feels like a page turner. It feels like there's a lot of movement. Seems like you've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes over the last 3 months to get the club into a new position. How are you feeling right now?
I am so excited that 2025 is behind us.
Yeah.
I joked around at the holiday party that I was going to wake up on the first with the, birds pulling my covers back, the most excited ever that it was a page turner. Because I know we'll get into it, but 25 was definitely a difficult year. But some of those challenges we made, I think, set it up for a very exciting 2026. But not only for the club, but for the sport and for the city as well.
And anecdotally, and this isn't just for the podcast, I've spent a bit of time over at the training ground, came into the office yesterday. It does feel like there's a new energy. It does feel different this year. Are you feeling that difference in energy?
I am. You think, oh gosh, I have to go back to work, but I was actually really excited to go back to work. I love our staff. I always say we have an amazing staff, but I think you alluded to it. There's a new energy. There's a new vibe. I think putting 25 behind us is key. But all these things we're working on and we've been talking about in theory, they're actually going to come to fruition this year, and I think that that's just exciting for everybody.
There's a duality with your role. You're both an owner and the CEO, in the office every day, sometimes 6-7 times a week. How do you sort of marry the CEO side, which is, boots on the ground, like very operational, and the owner side where it's maybe a little bit more emotional? Like, how do you split those two up?
I mean, as an owner, I always, you lead with an emotion, right? And you want the best for everything. And you want to be able to make decisions quickly. Like, we should do this, we should do that. But as a CEO, you have to think about an entire club. You have to think about a brand. You have to think about a region. And so that has to usually be a little bit more pragmatic and a little bit more thought put into it. Because again, the outcomes of those decisions impact a lot more people than you realize at the time. But it's a great role. I love it. I don't want to change anything about it. And the best part is I continue to grow each year.
2025 was a tough year. You've mentioned on previous podcasts that working in sport is difficult. Like, from the outside looking in, you're like, this is really fun, but it's difficult. Like, how would you rank 2025, since coming up with the idea and the inception of the club?
Up until last year, I thought it was difficult building a stadium, building a district, building a team. And then last year happened. And I think it was a year that I've experienced emotions, and not good ones, that I've never felt before. But to turn it into a positive, I told myself and I told my team at the end of last year, I will never feel that way again.
And moving fast does seem to be part of your DNA as a leader. This is we spoke on the podcast at the start of last year. Playoffs are the expectation, and when things didn't look like they were going to go that way, you made swift changes. Is that part of your leadership sort of mindset, like change problems quickly?
I go back to something my uncle taught me years ago in business, and he's like, bad news only gets worse. And we were at that point. And so, yes, we had to make a decision. But also knowing that one decision wasn't going to change the trajectory of everything. It wasn't going to be an overnight turnaround, but hopefully it was the start of a change, because we had to do something. Little did I know how many changes we were going to make throughout the year, But I think the same logic still applies. Things are not improving. In fact, they're going the other way. And so we can't sit on this anymore. We have to show, again, family, friends, staff, we are paying attention. We know what we're in for, and we can't tolerate it.
So 2026 is a massive year that's been in the calendar of a lot of North American fans for a very long time. It's a big year for soccer in the US, but also a big year for St. Louis. Like, what are you excited about?
Well, I mean, one thing about World Cup passionate soccer fans is they bring other people into the ecosystem. And so I think it's a really critical time for the sport in general, because I remember the last World Cup and, the watch parties we had, because we didn't have a team at that point, and just the excitement. It's what people talk about every single day. And you find people that you didn't even know were soccer football fans rooting on their countries or their favorite players. And so I think, what I'm most excited about is how do we curate watch parties? How do we curate those experiences that are like being in a World Cup city? But more importantly, I like to see how everybody comes together. Again, it could be 2:00 on a Wednesday afternoon and you see people from all over the region cheering, a team on. And I think that building that camaraderie and that neighborhood spirit, but also that competitive vibe, only helps us as a team.
What's the vibe amongst owners? You go to the board of governors meeting, you meet people that are other clubs. Is everybody really excited about what the World Cup can bring to soccer, and can this be the next big boost for MLS moving forward?
Yeah, I absolutely think for sure. But I also would even go one step further and say, that calendar change, and I think we'll talk about it more, was pivotal too. And it was really exciting to see the owners come together and make that happen as well. Because I think, once again, it puts us back, right with all the other, important leagues in the globe. But coming back to World Cup, I mean, hearing what other cities are doing, it's a great learning experience, but it's also, in my mind, something that we will absolutely kill our experience. And I'm so excited, to really be able to showcase all the great things we do for the region, but also we're going back to how much they support us by showing up to those parties, getting that attendance up there. So yeah, I think everybody's excited about it. It's a huge moment, and we just have to make sure we capitalize on it.
There are lots of different models of investment in teams. You have your LAFCs, you have your Inter Miamis, the Cincinnati's. A lot of people equate investment with success on the pitch. Like, how do you think about that heading into a future which you've said many times, like you're thinking long term about this club and success?
You have to be able to put a product out on the pitch that will keep your fans and attract new fans. But more importantly, you want to have players that your fans believe are their fans. Or they, when I always say one of the greatest days of coming back the second season is people actually had names of players on their kits. And so I think being able to get the players that become part of the community is extremely important. And you've seen that with success in other St. Louis sports. And so I think really that's the other thing too, is it comes down to accessibility, making sure that they provide an exciting product out on the pitch. But more importantly, they believe in the club and they believe in the ownership group.
So let's talk about sporting direction, the long-term vision of the club and how you see it. Corey Ray, let's talk about him. We had him on the podcast. We had a brilliant conversation. A very different character to where we've been before. You spent a lot of time with Corey. You went through a long interview process. Like, tell us something that we didn't know about Corey, and like how did he come to be as the new sporting director of CESC?
So I've always said we use tenacious salad in the club. And I always use the example of Corey called Diego and was like, get me an interview, I will get the job. And I have never seen anybody so persistent to get a job. And without even him really doing an interview, I was like, wow, I mean, this is incredible that somebody wants to come work for us that badly. And of course, his interview was fantastic. I did find out that Corey's sixth grade teacher, who now is his mother-in-law, by the way, in a crazy story, found out that he was an exceptional student. And he has such a brilliant mind, and it's always fascinating to see how he processes things. The way that he approaches things, and you see it, he's very methodical, very thoughtful, very intelligent, and he articulates it in a way that makes you not only understand, but you're also excited about what his plan is. And so I think that we were very fortunate to get him. And I think that he is starting a brilliant career here. And so I'm very excited and very hopeful for him.
What about his MLS experience gets you excited? Like you mentioned roster building and squad planning. It will be different this time around. Like what are your thoughts on how he builds out a team to be successful over the next few years?
Well, I mean, he's worked for, for so many people that are very well known and well recognized. He's won trophies. In fact, he was on the Columbus Crew 2 team that beat City 2 in the finals. And so he knows what it's like to win. He knows what it's like to win in MLS. And I am excited, and I'm very much looking forward to that. His references, unbelievable. I mean, people just could not stop saying enough nice things about him. And other owners even commented, and the MLS League office said, we were so lucky to get such a gem. And just in the few meetings we've had really around squad, and the way he approaches things is very much team first. And that's the kind of mentality we need to be a winner.
Do you think the winning IP that he's had at multiple clubs like kind of counteracted any concerns about the youthfulness of him? He's quite a young sporting director by the league standards.
He is. And but to answer your question, the way he presents himself and the way he presents information and details and data and strategy, if you didn't look at him and you just heard his voice, you probably would think that he had been in the league longer than he has. But then I remembered he started as a college intern. I mean, he has been in this sport for over 20 years. And one thing I have in a very positive way, he observes a lot. And I think that that's another tool that he uses to learn and process information. And so when he talks about some of the interactions he's had with some of these people that we've talked about, I think that he has really become such a good student, and now he's been able to apply these things in situations, and I think he's had a lot of success with it, so I'm excited to be part of his success here.
His winning mentality is quite infectious. Was the confidence that he gives that he has everything that he needs here, did that kind of inspire you a little bit as well? I mean, I've spoken to both Johan and Corey. I was with Johan earlier, and he's like, we have everything we need here.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting to have outside people come in and comment on how amazing the training facility is and how amazing the stadium is, because we think that, right? That was the ownership vision and goal. But to hear them come back and say they might actually have it too good. But congratulations on building such an amazing, stadium, facilities, everything else. So secretly you're like, okay, this is a good problem. I think that you feel like they've got it so good. But I also think that coming from player perspective and coaching perspective in particular, I think that they really truly believe they have everything they need. I also am very confident that they thought if there was something else they needed, they would be able to ask that from senior leadership and ownership. And of course, we would do everything we could to accommodate it.
There was some criticism in certain sections of the fan base about the time that it took to come to this decision. But I wanted to drill down on a point that you made earlier.
Yeah.
Like the advisors that you had as part of this process really helped cement the certainty that you'd made the right decision. Can you talk a little bit about that for me?
Yeah, I mean, it was a process, but I think one of the things that I've come to know, so just Carolyn Kindle's perspective, this is an international sport. So you have people from all over the globe that want an opportunity. And some of the best selling points we were told is it was a good local ownership group that was really invested and had no desire to turn the team over. You had an amazing fan base. You had world-class facilities. So it really was an amazing job, because the upside was so much bigger than the downside. And so I think when you have that many people that apply, it does sort of hold up the process a little bit. But also too, we had to find the right fit. We could not afford to make a bad decision. And so, yes, it was a rigorous process, and they probably had more interviews than normal because we just had to make sure that we found the right person.
And you have a slightly different formula for like the type of people that you want in the business than to say Diego or other people around the table. What are your personal non-negotiables when you meet new people? And not just Corey, but like
Yeah.
what are the sort of people that you want at this club?
Well, I have high expectations that they're going to become part of this community, and that's their family too. Because again, in the group that you're talking about, I'm the only true St. Louisan. And so I understand the importance of why you need to have key figures and players be accessible to everybody, be kind, be willing to volunteer, be willing to be a part of this community, because that is where their support's going to come from. It's where the club's support's going to come from, number one. Number two, honest, trustworthy. That's exactly how Enterprise was built. And so those are very important. And again, kind of going back to, just some of these nuances in MLS, it is a very difficult thing to understand. And so I think having somebody who understands those nuances is very helpful too. And then last, but they need to be a good person. Like, I need you to interact with my staff. I need you to interact with my fans. I need you to be a good leader to our players. And so I think we were blessed because the last sort of group, I would say, all of them had those qualities. But Corey just had a little bit more knowledge and experience with MLS. And I think that for me was the selling point. But it was a tough decision, if I'm being honest. And I feel very good, as does the rest of the ownership group, about Corey coming on board.
Fantastic. Um, a new sporting vision has entered the building, and the fans have shown a lot of patience, as you said, and we all agree. Best in the business, noisiest, most passionate. They show up, whatever the weather. There is going to be a level of patience that's required. Like, what sort of message would you give the fans on, like, what should their expectations be of what they see on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who's not typically called a patient person, I've actually had to learn patience as well. But, you and I were kind of chatting before this, and, as cliched as it is, Rome wasn't built in a day. But when we had to make all the changes we made, which were quite a few, we have to build back slowly so we build back correctly. So it is going to take time. But we needed to get those two key leadership positions in there before we could start really kind of deciding what can we do, what should we do, and what do we want to do. And so it's going to take time. I mean, there's no other way around it. Really excited about preseason to start. I think that'll be a good indicator about how players are feeling about a whole new regime.
Yep.
So that patience is always appreciated. But in this case, I think that patience is going to lead to much more positive outcomes than you've seen in the last 2 years.
So let's talk about the coach. You've got a young sporting director. You've got a young coach that was getting a lot of attention from around the league. Tell me about how Johan came onto the radar.
So Johan came in, and by far, and I've seen a lot of them, probably the best presentation I've ever seen, not just from somebody in sports, but just in general. But as you saw today, there's that charming, charismatic personality, but don't be fooled. He is equally as intelligent as Corey is, just hasn't quite had as many years in that role. Again, very excited to come to St. Louis, coming from Columbus, understands Midwest mentality, Midwest thinking, sees the opportunity he has. Of course, we're eternally grateful to Critch for stepping in what was a very, very difficult situation and making the best that he could. And he definitely made the top 3 in the interviews. But Johan, I think, brought something that we needed, and that is working under the people that he has worked under himself. Working with Corey was a big one because there's already that camaraderie there, which I think is key. But again, he's infectious, he's happy. He wants to be part of the community. He wants to be impactful in every sense of the word. And I think that, it is a breath of fresh air that we need.
And how will the relationship between you, Diego, Corey, and Johan work? What does that look like on a sort of ongoing basis?
Well, I think the first and foremost, I have to trust Corey and I have to trust Diego and I have to trust Johan because it's no secret. I don't have a soccer background and they do. And I think it's important for Corey to be able to walk in, January 1 or 2, knowing that the ownership group is 100% behind him. And so I think what's important is Corey and Johan, I think, have gotten to figure out how they work. And then Diego and Corey need to figure out how they work. And then I will come in when as needed. But I say that because empowerment's another word we use around here. And Corey has to be empowered to make decisions or at least bring suggestions to the senior leadership and ownership group to consider. But based on just a handful of meetings I've already had, I have complete confidence that Corey knows exactly what we need to do for City SC. And therefore, I'm very excited to step in or step out, I guess I should say, and step in when needed.
We covered off quite a bit on the roster building, so this section is largely redundant. But there was one question that we haven't spoken about. You re-signed Roman Berkey. How important was that for the club, for the fans, for the region?
Well, I mean, he plays such an important role, both on and off the pitch. For me personally, it also he brings stability. He's our captain. He's been here the longest. Obviously through all the changes. And so I think that certainly number one, being a fan favorite is important. But I also think he plays such a key role in the transition from past leadership to current leadership. And I think that he really has become such an important part of the club that it would have been a shame to lose him. And I think that it was definitely important for everybody. We kept him, and I'm so glad it worked out, and he's still here.
Let's talk about calendars. Big story. The MLS is shifting to a European calendar in 2027. How significant is this? And talk to me about how all the owners decided this was the right thing to do.
Yes. Okay. So Carolyn Kindle personally is so excited about this change for a couple different things. Really, for me, it comes down to acquiring talent and coming down to acquiring good talent, because I use the analogy of when our season's over and we're trying to attract European talent, they're just at mid-season. So they still have a whole nother season to play. And so now that we're going to level that playing field, I think it's going to be amazing, especially for maybe a Midwest team that doesn't have beaches and palm trees. I think it's also going to be great to have a playoff and a cup in May when we're not competing with massive college football games, NFL. I mean, honestly, everything under the sun. And so I think finally the MLS Cup will get the attention that it deserves. But it's also a great time for everybody to come to St. Louis, right? May to play the cup. And then thirdly, if you really look at the calendar, it doesn't change our, footprint that much. So I think from that perspective, I'm a huge fan. There are other owners that are also huge fans as well. Certainly for some of the southern markets, they're actually going, wow, we get to play more north when it's super hot. It's hard to get fans out there. Obviously, there were some owners that it probably impacts more than others. But the good news is that they all agree it's what the league needed to do. And so I think if you ever saw 30 owners come together to make something happen, it was this, because they all knew the competitive advantages would far outweigh things that may be more market specific.
A lot of people worried about the winter, but what do you think about there's quite a big break, isn't there, to help some of the Midwest clubs?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a December-January break. Actually, I will give MLS credit from the scheduling department. So they have a very good kind of rolling start to the season in February. So you'll see probably our first, 1 or 2 home games potentially played in the more southern markets. But I also go back to our first home match this year is February 21st. So again, it doesn't affect us right now as much. In fact, it may be a little bit more beneficial because maybe we'll start in our first match in March. But I think that MLS's home office has done a lot of work on this. And like I said, I give them a lot of credit because it's difficult. It's been challenging. And they took all the feedback, did as much as they could. But as far as starting that season up, I think they've done a really good job in, like I said, the kind of the rolling start. But yeah, I mean, there is a significant break there.
This is just an off the cuff question that I thought of, but if you're aligned with Europe, does that open up the opportunity for big European clubs to come to America, but potentially American clubs go into Europe to expand their brand footprints?
I absolutely think that. And it's funny because in all the things that I talk about, I don't really think that, and I should, because it could be an amazing opportunity to get those friendlies here. And we've fought that every summer, as you know, and it's always some sort of calendar issue that kind of gets in the way. But more importantly, I think it's a great opportunity to potentially have City go back into Europe and really showcase our colors, who we are, what we stand for. So yeah, that's another great benefit to the alignment. But again, I'm just so excited. I'm ready.
So some more good news. Apple are dropping the paywall within the paywall. Season passes no more. More people can access the service. How important do you think that is for the growth and the overall ambitions of the league?
Well, I think it's huge. And I hope that, the viewership goes up double digits because now you don't have to buy an entire season pass. So if you'd been kind of flirting with the idea of maybe watching a City SC game, you can now. And so I personally think it's a huge positive because now the hope is you have so many more fans that are now coming into American soccer and they can watch it. And whereas before you had to purchase a season pass and you may or may not have wanted to watch every match. And so I have very high expectations that we will see that fan base continue to grow, which is exactly what we need.
Not to be a company man, but Apple TV's got some pretty good stuff on there these days.
I know. That's why you can watch your shows and then you can jump over and watch City SC win.
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole plan, right?
Absolutely. Will City be partaking in festivities and creating things during that period that we have off in the summer?
Of course. We're never one to pass up a good party. Or I should rephrase that. We're never one to pass up the opportunity to throw an amazing party. So we have lots of exciting things coming up. I don't want to spoil, but I will say that we definitely tried to look at it from all fans of all ages from all over the region to come out and celebrate some part, if not all, of the World Cup with us.
Let's talk about off the pitch. How are you continuing to sort of redefine what success looks like? The bigger than soccer mindset that you have. Like, how are you looking at that heading into 2026?
I mean, just when I think we can't do better than we did the year before, we do. And, we had so many incredible things that were launched last year. We actually won an inclusion award. And it makes me so happy that the club, the entire club, but in particular, community relations and those departments that have impact there have taken the ownership directive to heart in the way that they have. And it is, how do we continue to be ahead and a leader in this accessibility space, because it is so important to the family and the ownership group. And so to see these amazing things, it just makes you so excited and makes you so happy to be an owner. The fan response, again, whether it's, a crazy fan or just a normal fan, they always pick up on this stuff. And they always are so grateful that we think about, people that may or may not necessarily be able to come see a match if we hadn't have put some things into perspective and and adding things like an adult changing table, a sensory room. But I also attribute a lot of the credit to you as well, because you have these focus groups that really give us the feedback that we want to hear. And then you're helping us implement on all of that. And that's why we're winning awards. That's why we're being picked up internationally as being somebody who really does want to be inclusive. Sustainability, who would have thought where that program has gone? Again, Joe Abernathy's retired, but some of the things that he put into place, we're winning awards that you don't see stadiums win because people think that it's not possible. And what we're saying is, no, it absolutely is possible. And again, we're setting that standard of anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And so I think all of these things are coming out from our employees themselves. It's not Carolyn Kindle saying, you need to go find a way to do this. It's them coming to me saying, Carolyn Kindle, I have a great idea. We need to think about it. And there's nothing that makes your heart more happy when they're so bought into that directive that you don't have to really ask. They're telling you. And it just, again, it makes me so proud to be part of this club.
And City Futures, one of the more visible community programs that's been running since day one. Some changes have been made there. Are you still all in on City Futures? And talk to me about how that's going.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in on City Futures. And again, it's amazing. My job also allows me to be all around the city in different capacities. And and I love hearing when people are like, yeah, you guys had this event at the park down the street from my house. And I took my kids and my nieces, and it was so much fun. And they had never really had exposure to soccer. And so when you start hearing how many people are taking advantage of those programs, it is truly incredible. What else is exciting is there's so much room for expansion. And part of the reason why we haven't been able to expand that program is because we didn't have the bandwidth and the capacity. So now kind of isolating it down to, okay, we need X, Y, and Z and A, B, C people to do this. This is the resources we need to expand the program. And so I'm really looking forward to the expansion of City Futures. Mini pitches, still a success. Last I heard, we've got people coming back to us saying, can we have one of these? They're great. And so we're really excited to figure out, what is the next version of mini pitches look like? But again, going back to, we've always said it has to be soccer for all. Everybody has to be able to have access to it. And so to continue to grow these programs is exactly what we want to have happen. And so, like I said, we realized part of it was a capacity problem. So what do? We fix that so we can continue to show up in neighborhoods and just bring the joy of playing the sport.
You are out and about in the community a lot. I know the philanthropic side of you is like really important. You've always got your ear to the ground in the community. I'd love to just ask you, what were some of your favorite moments in the community last year that really meant a lot to you?
I get to do so many events, right? So some of our community, I did a season ticket member event that was awesome. But, whether it's Ronald McDonald House, Hope Ignites, these players are so kind and very involved. And so whether it's, making meals at Ronald McDonald House, which is a Joanne Kindle favorite, or, just playing with these kids at Hope Ignites, you get to see what great people they are. And they're genuinely having fun. I will say there was a season ticket member event we went to, and every table had a player. And it was so interesting because some of the players that I would probably put on the more quiet and shy side were absolutely just they were the belle of the ball at their table. And I had so many people come up to me from all those events and say, your players are so down to earth. They're so kind. They don't have to do this. We appreciate them being here, but we appreciate them genuinely being engaged. And so for me, that's just a win on every sense of what I call winning in that, because like I said, I want them to be accessible, but I also want them to be accessible. And so when you hear that feedback, it really does make you so proud of the players that we have and how they bought into the community. So really all of them are my favorites, if I'm being honest.
I want to ask a question, something that is, we say it on literature, it's very much out in the open that we want to be an exceptional club and an exceptional neighbor. What does that mean this year?
Well, so I think as many people saw, we're expanding our partnership with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra in a special show called Eternal. But I think many people know, if not, the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra holds a very, very special place in Taylor's heart. My grandfather, Jack Taylor, believed that every world-class city had a world-class orchestra. So, probably 30 years ago, he really got invested into the symphony because he felt like it was a gem. We had to have it, and we needed it again to be a world-class city. So to fast forward in 2026, to be able to have this amazing partnership, this incredible show, very well curated, to some of the asks of not only the club but fans, it's going to be fantastic and a great way to kick off our season.
I mean, that is a spectacular destination. I mean, it is world class in every sense of the word. Tina Turner. Talk to me about Tina Turner. What's going on there?
So, one of the things that we keep talking about is how do we showcase St. Louis's music scene? And it doesn't always necessarily mean current artists. So, we decided to kind of go back into former artists. And I was not aware myself until we started this journey about, the impact she had on St. Louis. However, you and I actually called my mother when we were talking about this. And my mom proceeds to tell this incredible story about being 17 years old with her friends piling in the back of a hearse and driving over to East St. Louis, drinking beer out of a solo cup to see Tina Turner. And when you think about how many years ago that was, not to say she's mature, and the fact that she has been such a fan of Tina Turner, I can't wait to hear more and more stories like that. But again, it was important to showcase and highlight artists that are and were from the region.
The first video out of the year, very sort of mysterious video, a partnership with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, beautifully shot, a new dawn, a new beat, but the line was still rising. Without giving too much away, what does that mean? Is that something that's going to be with the club for the year?
I think it's going to be with the club for a year, so more to come. But I think what's most impactful about that is it's sending a message that the entire region is rising, And so when you look at all the amazing things that are happening in the St. Louis region, we're rising. When you're looking at all the amazing things that are happening at the sport of soccer, not only in St. Louis, but in the United States, it's still rising. So I think that it is a message that has multiple definitions and multiple meanings. And so I think we're just excited to continue to show more and more throughout the year.
Fan relationships, it's been a difficult year. You said at the top of the show that they've been making noise and you really appreciate them. How do you create the bond with the fans moving forward? And what does that relationship mean to you personally? Like, people come and talk to you in Schnucks, like wherever you are in the city, you're very accessible yourself.
Well, I mean, it is probably in the top 10 comments I get. I go for the people that are partying in the North End. I love the energy, the dancing, the chants. Our success when we weren't playing well really was because of that energy and that vibe they bring.
Yeah.
And I have other owners tell me, they're like, how in the world does your supporter section stay that loud for 90 plus minutes? And it has become such a part of who we are on match day. And so I would never want to jeopardize that because it is so important. But more importantly, people really look forward to it. And that's what makes them want to come back every week. And so now we just need to get a good product on the pitch, add more excitement there. We're done.
Lovely. So just sort of like closing out the podcast, just got a few more questions. What gives you confidence about the direction that St. Louis City SC is heading? What makes you, come into the office with a smile on your face in the morning?
So I think that there is this sense of optimism, there is this sense of excitement. And one of the things that I was talking about at the end of the year was this is actually the year of courage. And if we've ever needed a year of courage more, it's in 2026. And I think people really do know that ownership will make tough decisions if we have to, because at the end of the day, my job is to protect every single person in this club. And like I said, they might be unpopular. They might put me in social media jail for a little bit. But the bottom line is I have to look at the greater good and I have to look at the future. And like I said, I will not do 2025 again. So I think, again, coming back, it is the dawn of a new era. And kind of like we've talked about, I think it's a great year for the sport. So I hope the popularity in the sport rises, not only because of World Cup, but because we have an exciting product going on over there.
Yeah.
I think it's also great for the city, and if we can really kind of get back to that team we once were, better, of course, I think it does nothing but elevate the city. And I've said that from day one. My goal is to put St. Louis City SC back on the international map. But more importantly, I think it's going to help with our fan base. We need to grow that fan base. And so I am just excited because I think you're seeing everything continue to rise and elevate. And that's exactly what this region needs.
2026, what are the expectations for what happens on that pitch?
Number one, I want it to come back to being fast, furious, intense, emotional, fun, exciting, exactly what was always the vision. But most importantly, and I'm still going to stand by it, I want to get to the playoffs. I want to have that playoff experience again. And I'm so excited because I think that we have the right people in place to make it happen. And my hope is when we do this nice little date next year, I can sit here and say, ha, I told you so. We made the playoffs.
So 5 years from now, what do you want to be talking about?
I want to be talking about the fact we won a cup. I want to be talking about the fact that we have homegrown players that are playing all over the globe, making their hometown city, St. Louis, so proud. And I want to still continue to have an amazing fan base. And I still want to continue to have a absolutely ultimate match day experience still. And I still want to be the thing that everybody talks about. And you're not a cool kid if you're not at Energizer Park on Saturdays. So all lofty, I do believe doable. But yeah, I'm ready for the start of that of this year to get to that.
So the tradition at the end of the podcast, like a little message to the fan. I mean, the whole podcast felt like a message to the fans, but like, what's their takeaway when they're walking into Energizer Park, first game of the season? What do you want them to be thinking about?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the patience. I need a little bit more patience, but I promise things are definitely changing for the best. I truly believe that. I kind of jokingly said to my team at the end of last year too, I want winning to be boring. I want it to be the norm, not the exception. And I believe that we are doing everything we can to put the right people in place to make sure that that happens. So I hope we're celebrating more wins and more wins and more wins. But more importantly, I'm ready for just a good year. I'm ready for a good, positive, let's party, let's have fun, let's celebrate the beautiful sport. And in any way that's possible, right? Whether it's a match, whether it's a watch party. So overall, just thank you, and let's have fun.
Fantastic. What a way to end the podcast. That was Carolyn Kindle, CEO and owner of City. I hope that you're going to come back next year or at the end of the year and we can have a really good podcast looking back on the progress. But thank you for your time. If you are listening to this on one of your podcast apps, make sure you give us a 5-star review and we will be back very soon with another episode. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.